we wanted to talk a little bit about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. We're not going to go into super deep. Not going to go super deep into it. We didn't. We originally had a full review scheduled on the podcast, and it just didn't work out. And I'm kind of glad because I don't have an hour's worth of material to go off of the FNAF movie.
It was a movie.
I'm gonna say spoiler free.
That was not scary.
I'm gonna say spoiler free. If you know the story of FNAF, you will probably have a good time. But I also I know people that don't know anything about FNAF, and they were just so confused. And I feel like the impression I got from it was that they really, really want to franchise the movie and make a FNAF cinematic universe, but really don't want to take the patience to build the story like the games did. And so they're really oh, we want to do 5 movies, we want to do 8 movies, 3 movies, whatever. But we also don't want to slowly go into it. We want to cherry pick our favorite best moments from the 8 to 10 games, however many there are now, and throw them into this one movie. And that just doesn't feel sustainable. And it also made me realize why the critics rated it so low, because the story is kind of a disaster. It's a wreck. I don't know what they thought they were doing. The pacing is awful. It makes no sense. They kind of veered away from the source material. It just kind of it made me empathize, and this is maybe a tiny spoiler if you care. It made me empathize with the robots, the animatronics, a little too much, to the point where it made me feel like what I wanted was a super freaky, weird, oh my gosh, we're trapped in a pizzeria with these crazy animatronics. We need to get out. When it kind of made them the good guys. And I was just why are we here? How did this happen? And I'm not about it. I had a good time in the theater, but it was not scary. The story was a wreck. It had huge potential. It was literally written for them, and they just didn't do it. So,
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat. We've talked about before how FNAF really traumatized both of us. So I was on the fence about seeing the movie in the first place. But I was also really curious because this was another one of those movies this year where Rotten Tomatoes was very oh, it's very terrible. And then the audience score was oh, it's really great. And we've seen that dissonance between the two sets of reviews. So I was okay, well, maybe it's actually good. And we sat down and watched it. It wasn't particularly scary.
It wasn't.
There were a couple of jump scares here and there, but my biggest issue is there were a couple things that were missing. And I feel how do I want to say this? It didn't feel like an adaptation of the game. It felt like we're telling a story using the same characters and locations, and then also adding a couple of characters that weren't in the original game, and bringing in some stuff from the second, third, and fourth game that shouldn't be here yet, so that we can kind of put a bow on everything. Jackson's was spoiler free. Mine will not be. So if you don't want to hear spoilers for the FNAF movie, skip ahead by 2 minutes. The whole part with William Afton even being there, as far as I remember from the lore, that was never in the first game. That briefly came up in the second game. Wasn't really a thing until the third game. And it just kind of felt weird because we had the whole Springlock failure where he gets crushed inside the suit. That wasn't supposed to happen until the second or third game. So for it to happen this early felt really weird. It just felt like Mike didn't spend enough time sitting at the cameras, looking around, because the animatronics were never coming to kill him when he was there. They did, towards the end, but when he was sitting in the chair, doing whatever, they were never actively moving to kill him, which is what they do in the game.
Which is the entire point of the tension. That's the tension point, is you're trapped in a room, and you can tell they're moving all around you, but you don't know when or where they're going to come from. And so that's why the movie wasn't scary at all. There was no tension because the animatronics were like super goofy and like, friendly.
You're like, yeah, let's build a fort with table and chairs.
Yeah, what the frick was
like,
that? What the heck? There's like, let's build a little fort. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
The most violent thing those animatronics ever did was when those thugs came in.
Yeah.
And tried to like break up the place.
Right.
And it's like that they were moving during the day. That defeats the whole purpose of the game. Where they're supposed to move around at night, not during the day. Because you're the night guard, not the day guard.
Yeah. And it was justified. Like the thug killing thing, whatever, that was justified. Where they're like, I felt like they were really scared to make the animatronics the villains when that's the point. Like, I know
was the whole first game was to survive the 5 nights at Freddy's. Right.
Like, I know like the whole story of like, the kids died and it's super tragic and really screwed up and they're innocent. Like, the like air quote like ghosts or whatever in the suits, they're innocent children. Like, that's why it's so screwed up. But I also felt like because of that, they were really nervous to make them the villains, which is what it should have been. And so, I don't know. I was extremely disappointed, and I know they're going to make more movies, and they could redeem it in theory. But I feel like unless they slow down and really decide what they want to do with it, like I felt like I don't know where they're going to go from here.
Right.
Well, this really could have been a really solid maybe trilogy of movies where like the whole thing was really clearly mapped out of what gets revealed when, and it just wasn't that, and it's a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's all I have to say about it. It was okay. The funniest part of the movie, though, was the people in the theater who were screaming at the smallest little thing. And it was not that scary. Like the Balloon Boy jump scare where he opens the thing and like he's there. Yeah. I mean, I went a little like, oh, that was like, a little spooky. But then there were these girls or something in the same row as us in the corner who were like, there's like,
It was like, girl, this is like the most not scary movie I've ever seen. There's also an army of middle school boys right in front of us that were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then one of them left and they were like, I gotta go see if Tanner's okay. And it's like, I was honestly more invested in them than the movie, but it was wildly entertaining because I'm sure that was the scariest movie they'd ever seen.
Also, missed opportunity. This movie did not utilize the, like, all the power going out and then Freddy's eyes glowing and doing the da-na-na-na-na. Like, that's such an iconic thing that did not get implemented at all.
Wasn't that in the
trailer?
And
you could have done it when the music was in the trailer. And it's like such this iconic thing, and you could have done it when Golden Freddy showed up and killed the ant.
Right.
And like showed up behind her. I was like, oh, it's going to play the music and the lights are going to go out. And then it didn't.
Nope.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This was easy.
Positives, but real quick, I really like that it was made on a small budget. I think that actually made it better was the small budget because it was shot super practically. The animatronics looked incredible. They looked really, really good. I think
they're real. That's a pro and a con.
Right. Con because now I feel like they could actually come for me because they're real.
That was my one thing as a kid. Is like, okay, they're not real. They cannot fight me.
Well, now they're real.
Now they are.
Like, awesome. I feel like Josh Hutcherson did a pretty good job. I liked him in the role. I mean, it was shot well. Other than that, I was just like...
The girl who played Vanessa was really hot. Okay. Anyway.
But she was... I'm sorry.
Moving on.
She was not a good actor, though. Like, I'm sorry.
Was she not a good actor, or was she just directed poorly?
It
and
could
her
be.
character
It's hard
was
to tell.
written.
It's hard to tell. I'd have to see her in something else to know. But
yeah, like this could just be well directed, but with a poorly written character.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like... Because... I don't feel like she was a bad actor. Yeah. I think it was just a poorly written character where
I can get behind that.
They changed up. Like, you always knew there was something up with her from the start where like this random cop shows up and you're like, "Oh."
Right. Like they were trying to make it feel like it was a twist that she wasn't, but like from the second she's on screen, you know something's off. And
Right.
so it's just kind of like there was no mystery to it at all. So